Yeah.
Oh, they turn the phone off, haven't
It's on silent because, well, sorry Tony, but if you get lost, you have to find your own way.
they? If not, I'll just wait it
There we
out.
go.
Might have one. You want to charge it here? I think
Chris
put it
Lee
on
was
reception. I've got the bits there to do it.
Not that I'm aware.
Oh, I thought he'd... I don't know.
He might have done, he might randomly show.
I don't know. Just one a few weeks ago, I saw him ticket. So I don't know.
He may well just randomly show up. If he does, he probably won't show up till lunchtime. That's his usual thing when he just randomly calls in at events.
So, I don't know. No idea.
Huh?
Homework.
Yeah, it should all be.
Look like a muppet trying to write and well done to those of you who got here. And not only got here early. Well, you all did, which is excellent. Don't worry if people randomly come in because there are supposed to be more people. We're going to start without them. Simple as. So yeah, good morning. I'm Jonathan or Alex, depending on whichever you choose to use. It's just that, and it is all relevant to what we're covering today. I was born Alex William Smith.
Is this?
That's Tony. Hey. But when a compere or a chairman, or if you're doing a speaking event, is introducing you, if they go, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alex Smith, it falls flat. If you've got kind of sort of double barrel name, which is why I changed it to Jonathan Royal, because it's Jonathan Royal, it works with your name, Dave Rawson. It actually psychologically makes people more likely to applaud when you're introduced. And it's daft little things like that that when I say it, you go, well, what relevance is that to me? I'm a therapist, if you're in the therapy side of things. But all of these, good morning sir,
Morning, how are you?
all of these, we have literally just started, so you're alright. I would have liked to have said you missed the best bit, but you haven't. But it's all the daft little things that don't appear to be important that I would argue are the most important. Because if all the daft little things are taken care of, the things you can have control of, then when you get to doing the things that are, I don't want to scare people who haven't done this before, but when you get to the bits that's Russian roulette, it might work or it might not. It's more likely to work if all the bits you did have control of were done in a certain manner in the first place, if that makes sense. It will make more sense as the day goes on, I promise you. Now, show of hands, who comes from a therapy background? Mainly. That's like 4 of you. Which by virtue, I'm guessing, means everyone else is from a sort of entertainment background. In between. Well, yeah, but you have studied some therapy and stuff.
Yeah.
Forget pretty much everything you know. Yep. At least for the purposes today. Don't literally forget it. Don't take that as a suggestion. Obviously, when you do, that's probably a good idea to remember it. But in the context of what I'm going to be showing you, and you're going to be experiencing, because in order to have confidence to do something on somebody else, you need to, certainly to some degree, understand what it would feel like when somebody is going through that, so that you, in your own head, can say to yourself, well, I know that if I do this, the person's definitely going to feel such and such. And when you know that for yourself, because you've experienced it and felt it, that will give you more confidence. And rest assured, 99.9% recurring of anything that a stage hypnotist does is projecting confidence. And arguably, 99.9% of anything a good therapist does is about projecting confidence. Because you've got to appear as though you've done this a million times before, that you know it's going to work. If you've got a client in front of you for therapy and you're sat there nervously, ooh, you know, inwardly saying to yourself, I don't know if it's going to work, it's the first time I've done it. Even though you may not verbally be saying anything, on some unconscious level, they call it body language, people will pick up that you don't appear. So you've got to be, forget all these winky wanky therapy training courses where they go, it's all about being empathic with people and it's about having rapport and bullshit. And I can only share with you my experience, so if it conflicts with your personal experience, fair enough. But in my experience, people for therapy come because they want a solution, and the vast majority of the time, in their heads, they have got this preconceived idea that a hypnotherapist is like they've seen on films or on TV, with the swinging watch, or they go sleep and then they tell the person you no longer are scared of spiders or whatever, and it's apparently as simple as that. Which, on the one hand, it isn't, if those that do it know, but on the other hand, it actually is that easy if that's genuinely what the person believes it's going to be. And too many therapists, if you don't learn anything else today, and I hope you bloody do, because otherwise I'll have been wasting my time, but from a therapy point of view, most therapy courses teach you that if somebody says, oh, you're not going to make me run around like a chicken, are you? Or whatever daft cliche they come out with. They teach you to tell them how stage hypnosis and hypnotherapy are very different. And that's not what the client actually wants to hear. It might be what they're consciously indicating they want to hear, but it isn't. Because deep down, they're saying to you, are you capable of making me run around like a chicken? Well, they're not going to say that because they feel daft and then perhaps not even consciously aware that that's what they're really asking. But in their head, they think it's feasible. So when they might say something like that, you're not going to make me run around like a chicken, rather than wasting ages going, no, hypnotherapy's like this, stage hypnosis is like that, and apparently reassuring them. Doing that, you lose a lot of your power as a hypnotist. Whether it's therapy or you lose your power because they already, to ask that, means they entertain the possibility that it's possible. So far better to answer, well, yeah, we can do that if you want, but you've only paid for an hour of my time or whatever length of time they book for. And if we do that, that's going to like take 15, 20 minutes. So I've got another client coming, I'll have to ring you, it's going to cost you more. It's up to you, do you want to do the chicken stuff? They're going to say no, for various reasons, because they never wanted to be made to look like a chicken. They also don't want to pay any more money, likely, as long as you're charging enough. But by answering that way, you've come to the same thing of reassuring them it's not going to happen, because they've not paid you for it and you haven't got the time, but in a manner whereby in their heads they believe that you could have done that if they've chosen to pay the extra money. So therefore in their heads they can come to the conclusion that you do have that power. And as long as they believe you've got this power, then you have. Because hypnosis doesn't exist. There is no such thing as a trance state. And if anyone's sat there going, yes, but they've done these brainwave scans and apparently there's different... It's bullshit. But if you actually bother to look into it more, they've also done studies that show that if you just get someone to close their eyes, no formal hypnotic induction, nothing like that, just close their eyes and think of something that's happened to them in the past, like being on holiday, the exact same brainwave patterns happen. So either A, just closing your eyes is hypnosis, or B, hypnosis isn't anything unique, different or distinct. So yeah, I hate to burst your bubble if anyone's thinking, oh, that's not to say you can't get people to do things against their will. Again, it's a fallacy. Most therapy courses will teach you, tell people, if somebody says, can you make people do things against their will? You know, conventionally they teach you to say, no, you can't make people do things against their will. Yes, you fucking can. Yes, you can. Of course you can. It's fucking pointless exercise if you can't. It doesn't, I mean, this doesn't apply so much with the kind of show that Dave does or some other people in the room may do, that do clean shows. But, and I'm not saying this to brag, it's just an unfortunate circumstance, but in the 90s I got dubbed as Britain's most pornographic hypnotist. And I did have men wanking each other off on stage for real. I don't mean miming it, I mean genuinely wanking off and such like. And I don't believe any amount, well, certain scenarios maybe, but generally speaking, social compliance, the idea of I've got to look like I'm hypnotised, I'm playing along, doesn't really cover the kind of things I was getting people to do. I believe that for the vast majority of stage hypnosis shows, and this is all this, by the way, psychology, if you're doing therapy and you're thinking, well, hang on, I'm not going to do stage shows, what relevance is this to me? All of this will make sense as we go along, as we get into the actual induction methods. But the psychology, I believe, applies for therapy as well. The only difference is, in therapy, you're doing a show to one person. When you're doing stage hypnosis, you're doing a show to a load of people. But there's nothing to stop you doing this show, or therapy, call it what you will, to more than one person. Group therapy sessions, highly profitable. And if you already do therapy, you can already do group therapy sessions. You don't need to go on some special course for it. You just need to alter what you say. So instead of saying to people, I'm talking to you now, common sense, you say, I'm talking to everyone in the room. And I'll apologise in advance, because there'll be points during the day where I will state things that seem so ridiculously obvious that it might seem like I'm insulting your intelligence, so I apologise for that. But it's those ridiculously obvious things that I believe are the most important things. If you get those in place, everything else, the vast majority of the time, will work. And the reason I say vast majority of the time is, despite what some people would like you to believe, there is nothing on this planet, therapeutically or stage, that works 100% of the time for 100% of the people. If there was, I wouldn't be fucking sat here. There isn't. And that's because there is no special bloody power, except inside their heads that you've created. If you could make, yes, you can make people, it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but you can make people do things against their will, but only when you get them to a certain point of compliance. Arguably, that would get more into the realms of brainwashing rather than hypnosis. That'll become clear as the day goes on. So, there are 7 key points to what we're going to be covering today. And these apply whether it's therapy or stage. So I'll try these down. Get rapport. Excuse my handwriting. Induce the trance. I'm just using the word. There's no such thing as a bloody hypnotic trance, but it's easy for reference point. Induce the trance. Deepen the trance, which is fucking hilarious because there is no trance, so there's nothing to deepen. But still, nonetheless, we'll put it on the board. Ego strengthening. I probably not even spelt that right. Necessary therapy. If it's for therapy. Or show. Doing entertainment. Implant. Post-hypnotic. Awaken. They're the 7 steps, whether you're doing therapy, whether you're doing group therapy sessions, whether you're doing a stage hypnosis show, whether you're combining stuff with your magic tricks, mentalism, whatever. Not necessarily 100% in that order, but therapy, it is this order. Get rapport. Is all you need to do to get rapport. Again, forget anything you've been taught. Loads NLP courses are going about, you know, talking in the person's language, VACOG, visual, auditory, kinesthetic and all this shite. Totally unnecessary. Most of what they teach in these courses is pure and simple to pad it out, to justify why the course is taking so long and they're charging so much, and it's to instill in the therapist a sense of they know something special, and that if they follow these special steps then they're doing something special and therefore it's likely to work. So ultimately it's just about instilling a confidence where you can still have that confidence when you accept the fact that it's all bullshit. You have confidence in the fact that it's bullshit, and the plus point of realising it's all bullshit, therapy is nothing more than a placebo. Therapy, no therapist has ever stopped anyone smoking, no therapist has ever cured somebody's phobia. The person could have fucking done it themselves. All a therapist is an excuse. A slightly nicer way of butting it for some people is that they're the focal point, the therapist that gives them permission to change. If you want to, but the truth is that individual, therapy courses were going about the client has to be ready for change, and yes they do. Because at the end of the day they're the one that either doesn't buy more cigarettes or no longer has a panic attack when they see a spider or whatever it may be. They could have done that themselves. But they will have reached a point, whether they're consciously aware of it or not, they will have reached a point when they go to see a therapist, especially if you're charging enough money, and the more you charge, the higher your success rate will be, I promise you, because your idly curious individual who's getting moaned at by his wife, for example, oh, at Mavis, at Bingo, been to see this therapist, and, you know, why don't you go and you'll drink less or stop smoking? In the end, they end up going to a therapist to shut the missus up, fully in a state of mind that they can walk away and go, oh look, it didn't work, but at least I tried. That's why therapy doesn't always work. Because the person's not in the right state of mind. If they're genuinely in the right state of mind, they will stop. But they've got a problem. If they suddenly wake up one morning and go, that's it, I'm not drinking alcohol anymore, or I'm going to do it in moderation, or whatever it may be. And then, sooner or later, the friends and the family will notice that there has been a change. And they'll go, John, we've been out now for like 3 hours in the pub and you've only been drinking Coke or whatever. What's going on? You're not feeling well. And at some point, they're going to address it and go, oh, no, I've stopped drinking. At which point, well, if it's the mates and it's blokes, the blokes are cruel to the mates, it appears, from what I observe, they'll probably start taking the piss and trying to goad them into having a drink. Women are far more understanding generally. They'll be kind of like, oh, well done, yeah. But ultimately, from both camps, at some point it's going to come out, well, what, you found it easy? Well, if you found it that easy, why didn't you do it sooner? Problem. How do they answer? Because they're now in a problem situation of having to admit the fact or make up some spurious excuse as to why they didn't just do it like that sooner. Because surely if they've just done it now like that, they could have done it like that then. So you've either got to come up with some excuse or ultimately end up relapsing, as they call it in therapy, and start drinking again or start smoking again or start having the panic attacks again. So that they can then be released from that situation of feeling trapped where they feel like they're being criticised because people are questioning why didn't you do it sooner. So they revert back to that type of behaviour. Whereas if they go and see a therapist and spend money, it's irrelevant what we do really. Any old mumbo jumbo, some important seeming ritualistic process, they can walk away after having been there for half an hour and a half, whatever process length of time you're using, and it is more about whatever makes you feel comfortable as the therapist than what matters for the client. Because if you feel comfortable with what you're doing, you're going to project more confidence when you're doing it, which in turn is going to justify on some level to the client inside their head, this person's a professional, they know what they're doing, So I can go away from here, and if somebody says, oh, you've stopped smoking, how did that happen? I can go, oh, I went to see this wonderful therapist. And then they're in a position where people can't, but they can say, well, why didn't you do it sooner? Well, they've got the perfect thing. Well, I didn't know about this person. I didn't think it'd work. But then Joe at work or whatever told me that someone they knew had been to this person and it worked for them. So I thought I'd go. I wish I'd heard about them sooner. And it removes all responsibility from them. It removes all self-blame, shame, guilt, regret, frustration, anger, resentment. Anything negative that they could have internalised for not having done it sooner is removed from them. So yeah, arguably, as a therapist, you do give them permission to change, you give the context for them to change, the environment for them to change, but we are just an excuse. It really doesn't matter what you do when they come into the consulting room, as long as you do it with a straight face, unless you're doing laughter therapy, then obviously there's going to be some laughing involved somewhere along the line. A bit of common sense applies to this as well. But generally speaking, as long as you do it with a straight face, so you look as though you're serious in what you're doing, and therefore you're projecting this attitude that you've done this thousands of times before with loads of other people just like them, and it worked wonderfully, which they're going to be in that state of mind anyway if you've advertised yourself right, because they'll have seen testimonial videos on your website from people saying how their lives been changed. So by the time they get to you, they're in this state of mind that they can feel comfortable about leaving there and going, yes, I have made these changes, but it's removed all responsibility from them. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying that anything I tell you today is 100% guaranteed fact. And I can't say that because the simple fact of the matter is nobody can prove this one way or the other. There's just as much scientific evidence out there to say what I'm saying is bullshit as there is the same amount of evidence saying what I'm saying is right. All I do know is that having this mindset years ago when I started out doing therapy, which I'll come to in a minute, I had it drummed into me that there was some special state. And I had it drummed into me that you had to tell them it was different than stage hypnosis and all the normal kind of cliches that I briefly touched upon. And I went down that route, and back in my head I was always thinking, God, I hope this works for them. I hope this bloody works, because then they'll go away and they'll say good things, I'll get more clients. But if it doesn't work, they'll go away and they'll badmouth me. Or with the stage show, I was thinking in the back of my head, for fuck's sake, I hope these people go under, because if they don't, there won't be a show. So I was then so inwardly doubting that it would work, that it actually fucked up more times than it needed to. And it was all my fault because I was focused on the possibility that things could go wrong. I then realised eventually, partly through experience and partly through advice of a guy called Delavar, who's no longer with us, that you're far better off cultivating a state of mind, whether you're doing therapy state, it's pretty much applicable to practically any career really, a state of mind that things, there's only one thing that can happen. It's going to work. To what degree it's going to work, that's out of your hands. But when you accept the fact that A, it is going to work, there is going to be a result, but to what degree, for how long, you know, because somebody stops smoking for 5 years and then starts again. Have you failed? Some people would say that it wore off. I prefer to say, look, if the person leaves and they stop smoking for even a bloody month, I've done what they said, because people have got free will to start doing something again. So you've got to get the key thing first, and this is so important with rapid inductions, it's so important with doing a stage show or doing group therapy sessions. The first thing you need to do is cultivate in your own head that you cannot fail. If you structure things right, in the eyes of the client or the eyes of the audience, I will cover how to structure it, because that is the most important thing. If you structure things right, if things don't go the way that most people would expect them to, because you've set it up right, the audience will perceive it as though none of it's your fault. So the key is to set everything up so that if for some reason the client doesn't get the result that they said that they desired, they feel it's their fault, not yours. Which I know goes slightly against the grain of what most therapy costs do. But it is, it's entirely the client got themselves in that fucking position, and ultimately they're going to get themselves out of it. We're just a focal point for them. And I'm sorry if this offends, touches buttons, but you know, you can choose to accept or ignore anything that I've shared with you today, but I'm just telling you what goes on in my head. And I know from experience, having taught this to tons of people, that they've said that once they get in the mindset that things cannot fail, it removes that fear of what happens if it goes wrong. Well, if it can't go wrong, or at least in the eyes of the people watching, if you've got an audience, or in the eyes of the therapy client, it can't be perceived that what's happened is your fault, then you remove that fear of the audience ending up potentially being in a situation where they're going, fucking hell, he's shit. Or this person walking out going, telling everyone that therapist, absolute charlatan crap, you know. When you know that that isn't going to happen, and don't get me wrong, there's cunts on this planet. There will be, sooner or later, if you do therapy, if you're doing stage shows, sooner or later someone's going to volunteer. And however much experience you've got, generally you can, over time, notice the attention-seeking fuckwits, as I call them, and get rid of them nice and early on. But now and again there'll be somebody who does appear to be doing all the right things at the right times, and you think, I'll leave them in the show, and then later on will turn into the attention-seeking fuckwit. So yes, it will happen occasionally, and occasionally you'll get someone, however much money you're charging, who comes with one sole intention, despite what they say, they come to prove you wrong. Hence, it's even more important to steer things so that it cannot be perceived that you've done anything wrong. It's all their fault. So, very artificial environment this. Normally, if you were doing a show, you would have a microphone that you would either be holding or would be clipped on. We obviously don't need that in this environment. But I'm going to, yeah, we need to cover stage 1 of the 7. Get rapport. In therapy, before we cover stage, in therapy, forget all this stuff about VACOG and all that, and back on track again. I do this, I'll go off on one, but all of it's relevant. It'll piece together, trust me. Getting rapport in therapy. You've had them ideally pay at least 50% of the money up front before they come, so they've made a commitment. When they show up, if not before, you get the balance of the money before the session, so they made another bloody commitment, you know, internally, and the more you charge, the better, because then it's a bigger commitment. You already know the name, because they booked the session. So all you need to do to get rapport. Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Mike. That's it. Done. Now, I know a lot of... yeah, so literally that. Oh, sorry, and there is one other thing I advocate in therapy. You go, I know it says Mike, you know, Mike on the form, but what do your friends and family tend to call you? Is that what your friends and family normally call you, Mike?
Dave.
They call you Dave. Right, no, they're not saying that. So, would it be okay if I call you Dave today?
Yeah.
Now, the moment that they say yes, they might not have a nickname, they might not have a short version of the name, but a lot of people do. The moment they say yes, it's okay for you to call them that. They are consciously accepting that you will then be referring to them in the same manner. They've given you permission to refer to them in the same manner as their trusted family and friends. So arguably, they're already then, that's it, rapport is created. They put you in the same trust level as the family and friends that call them that. And that's a damn sight quicker than finding out what representational system they're speaking, or looking at their eyes, are they looking to the left, are they looking to the right. No need, just, because there is this other thing that I believe. You don't actually want too much rapport with your clients. You're a fucking hypnotist, for Christ's sake. Now, alright, if you've been brainwashed by the idea you've got to tell them it's different than stage, then this could wrangle with what you've been taught before. But I'm a believer that if they're already in the state of mind that they think they might be the old swinging watch and you've got power and you can make people do things against their will, give them what they expect. Rather than when you say to them no, on some unconscious level, you're also saying to them that they were wrong. And people, human beings, don't like to be wrong. They like confirmation that they've done something right. Whereas when you tell them that, well, yeah, I could have you run around like a chicken, but it's going to cost you more money, do you want it? Which says you've got that power to them. But you're also saying to them that they were right and it makes them feel good. So arguably, again, that is also increasing the rapport. Because people like people that give them praise and tell them that what they're doing is right. So there is actually, oh, it's only little sentences, there is some deep level psychology behind it. So that's it, effectively, therapy-wise, because therapy-wise, I'm a great believer that you give them that, you're the hypnotist. So therefore, you are the dominant expert. You've got your diplomas in the frame, well, they're out there, but on the wall, the placebo triggers that they see, oh, this person's done a lot of study. You've got the bookshelf with all these big books on psychology that you've never fucking read. Well, I haven't read the ones that are on my shelf, but on Amazon you can get like, just look at the page count. It doesn't matter what the book is, as long as it's to do with psychology. You know, if you can buy a second-hand book with 800 pages, you know it's going to look good on the shelf. About 20 quid, you can have a shelf full of these fucking things. People see them, they assume you've read them. You must be like some serious, whoa, this is heavy shit. You never read them. It's a prop. It triggers off the mind the same as the bits of paper do. You must have studied all these courses to have all this alphabetic spaghetti letters after your name bollocks. That is all it is a placebo trigger, and also a kind of non-verbal reassurance to them that they can feel good about leaving there and going, the reason I've now changed is because I've seen this wonderful person who knows what they're all on about. It's about creating credibility. And the stage hypnotist does the same thing. If a stage hypnotist was introduced, please welcome Joe Bloggs, whatever, and he walked on stage like, good evening. Carried on like that, in a couple of minutes, people are going to, if it's somewhere where the bar's open, they're going to be stood up, going to the bar, getting a pint. They're not going to be paying attention to them. And they're going to think, who is this fucking muppet? Excuse the language, but it's because people have this idea that hypnotist is a domineering or at very least confident person. And quite clearly, if you're going to let somebody mess around with your head, which is the perception people have, that's not actually what's going on as such, but that's the perception people have. If you were going to volunteer to let someone mess with your head, or go to a therapist to let them mess with your head, however you want to look at it, you'd want them to appear confident. You know, you probably, if you were having a conventional operation, you went to see a specialist, and he came out, and no offence to anyone who knows anyone with Parkinson's disease, but he came out and he was shaking like fuck, and he was going to be perhaps doing open brain surgery, you'd probably decide to go and find a different specialist, wouldn't you? It's all about perception, credibility, confidence. So, especially when it comes to rapid inductions, which is what today's about, and we are getting there. This is all totally relevant. You don't ask people, you should never ask people, as a hypnotist, and when I say as a hypnotist, I mean therapy or stage, okay, so I don't have to keep saying it all the time, to do something. You should never ask them. You should command them. Now, if you go back in history and look at books on mesmerism or suggestive therapeutics, as it was called, it is always referred, the instructions that the operator, aka hypnotist or therapist, but they refer to them as an operator then, that the operator gives to the client or patient, the instructions they give are referred to as hypnotic commands. Some footwit along the way decided it would sound nicer, and probably some winky-wanky, arty-farty, you know, tree-hugging therapist type, decided to start referring to it as hypnotic suggestions. Bad idea. When you suggest something, it gives somebody the option whether to do it or not to do it. When you command somebody, you know your phraseology is in a manner, and your voice tone's in a manner, and your body language is in a manner that it's a command, the vast majority of people, as long as you're authoritative enough, tend to follow authority. Yes, you will always get an exception to the rule. You will. Definitely on stage. But in therapy, highly unlikely, because they've already paid half the money before they got there, the rest when they arrive. The chances of them going, what for, are so minimal, they're not even worth considering. Because they wouldn't be there if they didn't need the excuse. Make sense? So, yes, get rapport. So on the stage show, you have, in therapy, they're going about having a pre-talk, butting the client at ease, telling them what hypnosis is and isn't and all that bollocks. Hi, what's your name? What do your family and friends call you? Would it be okay if I call you that? Yeah? And once they say yeah, you've got rapport. As for, have you got any questions? If they come out with the classical, what's it going to be like? Don't worry about that. It's just going to be very relaxing and you'll find out. Far better than me trying to explain it to you. Let's get on with it. You take control. You don't give them time to think. Arguably, if you are keeping somebody consciously occupied with commands, instructions that they have to do, it becomes like the soldier on parade. There comes a while after being told and instructed that they just stop questioning. They just immediately obey the sergeant major's commands because they get indoctrinated, they get conditioned into behaving that way. Well, that can happen very quickly with human beings, especially when in therapy they've come voluntarily and they're paying money, and for a stage show 99% of the time the people you will have on stage have volunteered knowing full well what they're volunteering for, which makes a complete mockery of it, because pretty much everybody knows that a stage hypnotist makes people do stupid things. That's why they've gone to the show. That's the perception they've got. So when they volunteer, they're volunteering knowing the chances are they're going to do things perceptively that they wouldn't normally do. That isn't actually true. I mean, I believe that unless you're going to real extremes, pretty much anything a stage hypnotist gets people to do is stuff they would have done anyway. In fact, if you go to any nightclub in any town on a Saturday night and leave it till maybe 1 in the morning and go and see the people that have had quite a few bevies, and you'll see DJs randomly, I don't know if they do it around here, but certainly I know in like Blackpool and holiday resorts, they randomly go, the first woman to bring me a warm pair of knickers to the DJ stand gets a free bottle of Chateau de Shite. And suddenly all the women on the dance floor are taking the... That is more extreme than what the vast majority of stage hypnotists get people to do on stage. And there, what excuse have they got for doing it? What? Oh, because they want a bottle of Chateau de Shite. That's it. At least with the stage hypnosis show afterwards, they can go back to the audience when people say, Dave, you were sucking a rubber dick up there thinking it was an ice cream. They can go, oh, you what? I wasn't, was I? And they can pretend that they don't remember. So then they remain the centre of attention with their friends going, oh yeah, he made you do this, he made you do that. So all blame, shame, guilt, regret, all the negative stuff we spoke about before is absolved from them, removed from them. They've got the perfect excuse. And they remain the centre of attention afterwards. Or they can come off stage, because, you know, there's this whole debate, do people remember or don't they? Some people do, some don't. So that was the people who don't. Or there can be the other people that will go, oh, yeah, no, I remember doing that, but I just couldn't stop myself. It's weird, that hypnosis stuff. Again, they've got the perfect excuse. It wasn't their fault. The hypnotist made them do it. It's the perfect excuse to make a complete and utter dickhead of themselves. And generally speaking, certainly if you're doing a clean hypnosis show, And even then, some of what purports to be adult hypnosis shows, what you're actually getting the person to do on stage isn't actually that bad. It's more what you as the performer says that into the minds of the audience makes it seem bad. Example, you might have people up here and they're out of it, whatever. If you were to say to these people that in a few moments' time and the music begins, you realise you're a concert pianist, right? So, go on the playing one, there's music, and the audience are all like, oh, he thinks he's playing a piano. Forget the music for a minute, all they're really doing is moving their arms around like that and wiggling the fingers. It's not difficult for the person to do. To be honest, I don't think it's fucking entertaining either. But who am I to judge? It's given me a good lifestyle. I think stage hypnosis shows are the most pointless fucking crock of shite on the planet. And I say that as someone who's been doing them since 1990. Right? And it still pays for my daughter to go through private school and stuff. But they're a fucking ridiculous pile of shite. The least entertaining... It bores me to watch them. Fortunately, lots of the general public, because they have this false idea that they're witnessing somebody with a magical power make people do things against their will. It's almost a sadomasochistic sexual undertone. It generally is, even with a clean show. It's the idea inside their head that I wish I had that power. Even though that isn't what's really going on, but that's what makes it arguably entertaining to the audience. But ultimately, all they're doing is move their arms around like that. Now, if I go up to someone, take them by the wrist, and close their hand like that, and just start moving their arm like that, and then let go, and say, when I let go of your arm keeps moving. All they're doing is that, and then but I verbally over the mic go, and that's it. You have to start. That's it. Start moving your arm fast. You've got to wank yourself off faster and faster. They're not. They haven't actually got the cock out. Years ago I did, but not now. The laws were a bit tight. But just saying over the mic, you've got to wank yourself off faster, makes the audience howl with laughter. And in their heads, the audience are going, hey, he thinks he's wanking himself off. Oh, he's really going for it. And then you go, no. When I click my fingers, you've got the world's smallest dick. And then they're going, and now you've got the biggest dick on the planet. And they start doing this. If you actually look at what they're doing, they're not actually doing anything rude. The only thing that makes it rude is in the minds of the audience, based on what you've said over the mic, to turn... That could just as easily be that they're moving their hand like that because they're flipping, I don't know, making a bloody cocktail in a cocktail bar. It's the perception of the audience based on what you've said over the microphone. That'll become more relevant later on. But it's the same with therapy. What we tell them to do, command them to do, this important seeming ritualistic process, it's just something to occupy the time. So that if you were just to get them in, sit them down, say, close your eyes, right, you fucking idiot, you're fine now, off you go. In truth, it's my sincere belief the vast majority of the time that person would leave and they'd be fine. Because they paid the money, they made the commitment and whatnot. But they could end up thinking inside their own head, I honestly paid money for that. And that could start to give them a reason to want to revert back to the behaviour, relapse, call it what you will. Whereas if you spend an hour with them, most people don't, in everyday life, we very rarely, except perhaps with our partners or our kids, we very rarely get quality time, pure attention on us as human beings. So just the fact that they're in a room and someone is talking to them for an hour, that alone is arguably therapeutic. Same thing with a stage show or a group therapy session. If you bring somebody to the front of the room, let's say it's a group therapy session rather than a show, and you have them do something, and you make it easy for them, and you frame it in a way where they will look good for having done it, so the audience will applaud them, praise them. It's good for their ego. It makes them feel loved, wanted, needed, appreciated, cared for, cherished and valued. It gives them a nice feeling inside. In therapy one-to-one, it's self-explanatory, we've covered that. In a group environment, it's the same, you're just doing it to more people, but you might get somebody to the front to do something, such as we will later in the day physically be doing, to act as a convincer to the audience that, wow, this person has got this power and is going to be able to help me, because you make it a little bit more entertaining when there's a group full of people. But in all of the occasions, it's about making the person, well, A, structuring it so it's never your fault, and B, structuring it so it's as easy as possible for the individual or the group of volunteers or the entire room to do what you've commanded, so that if they, in a split-second moment of rationalisation, if they were to think about it, they go, that's not difficult, I may as well do it. You know? The easier it, I'm going to go back to the stage example for this. This is very important when we get to the inductions. The easier you can make it for the individual or people to do what you've just suggested to them, so a situation is created where it's actually more effort for them not to do it. Once you get them in that environment where it's actually more effort for them not to do what you've suggested, commanded, then they do it. And then they do the next thing, and then they do the next thing. And there comes a point that they've done various things, which is why if you ever go and see a stage hypnosis show, invariably, 9 times out of 10 at the beginning, everyone will imagine, be told that in a few months' time, it's 7 AM in the morning, some silly bastard's left the window open, it's blowing a gale, it's snowing outside, it's getting colder and colder and colder, and you need to snuggle up to the person next to you. In fact, the person next to you stolen the quilt, grab that quilt back off. Invariably, they'll do a cool day thing. And then invariably, it then becomes warm. It's no longer freezing cold, it's now getting warmer, and you're on the beach. But if you actually look at what you're getting them to do, their eyes are closed at the beginning, so they don't have to look at the audience, so they don't have to be conscious of the fact that they've got a load of people watching them. So at the beginning, their eyes are always closed, which would make sense because they're asleep in bed, and you'd have said to them, okay everyone, eyes remaining tightly closed at all times unless I say otherwise. You know, imagine in your mind's eye, it's almost as if it's 7 AM in the morning, and you realise that somebody's stolen the quilt, the window's open, it's getting colder and colder, and you're starting to shiver and shake. All they have to actually do is this. If they do that, any movement like that, or that, which is no particular big effort, because of what you've said verbally, the audience perceive it as this person thinking they're freezing cold in bed. They're actually, what they're doing is feck all. Why it's entertaining, God only knows, but it is. And when it comes to the hot day, I'm talking to everyone, it's no longer freezing cold. Eyes remaining tightly closed, just stretch out in your sun lounger. So invariably the people go, oh, he or she thinks they're on a sun lounger. They've just put the fucking legs out in front of them. Doesn't take any talent. I'm not going to win the X Factor with that, you know what I mean? Yeah. Oh, and as it gets hotter, I'm going to give you some invisible suntan lotion. Start rubbing it into your body. I'll put it into your hand now, and you lift their hand up, and you literally start moving it on the body like that. Take your hand away. So you've non-verbally told them what to do. They carry on doing this. That's all they're doing. It's not difficult. Doesn't require any rehearsal. And the audience start laughing their head off because they're going, ha ha ha, that person believes. It's the same if you analyse anything the stage hypnotist does. It's not the least bit fucking impressive. In terms of, this person isn't magically turned into some incredibly talented actor. There might be occasions where they particularly are playing it up massively and they're hilarious, but generally speaking, what they're doing isn't that impressive when you analyse it. And in therapy, what are they actually doing? Fuck all, generally. They sit there for an hour with their eyes closed while you say things to them. And they might answer the odd question, or depending on which therapeutic approach you're using, they might answer various questions, or they might be told to lift their arm up to indicate something. But what they're doing isn't difficult. And when you analyse it, it's well, it's not impressive. Well, it isn't to me. And I'm sure if you go and look at it and analyse, I know you're thinking, hang on, he's supposed to be teaching us how to do this stuff, rather than saying what a pile of cack it is. The thing is, I want you to realise what a pile of cack it is and start to understand it from that point of view, because then you won't be bothered about doing it. There's no any fear of will it work or won't it, it's taken away. Which is why both in therapy and stage, one of the most important phrases of all that I advocate using very early on, and it doesn't matter whether I'm talking to a lot of people on stage, an entire room of people for group therapy or one-to-one, that applies to all of this. Just so long as you use your powers of intelligence, imagination and concentration effectively, as I'm sure you will, then the work we do together for the next hour will be